Tonight's podcast, where we expose yet again lies that Wendell Archie Sr. continues to tell, in hopes of saving himself and ministry from crumbling. It's important for all to know and remember, what's done in the dark will come to the light.
And no liar is going to tarry in my sight. If you speaking a false lie, I don't even want to see you. That's giving us how we ought to be. You need to tell your sister, your friend, your mother, your brother. You need to tell anyone that lies to you or somebody, I don't want you coming around here with them lies. This preacher wanted to hurt me so bad, he acted like this person was a member of my church. So when she never was a song leader in my church. Because my song leaders, talk to every one of them. There ain't a song leader throughout Refuge Temple Ministry that haven't had a personal conversation with me. Because I teach you how to conduct yourself. They brought that woman up. Who brought the man by my house? And man, that woman got through talking about it. She told the entire truth. She said, we were members of another church in Texas, but they had put it on me. That was a notable minister that, as I understood recently, he stepped down. When I heard about that notable minister that stepped down, I don't know about the board that's supposed to have done what they did to him, but one thing I can say, when you quit doing the will of God, you must deserve to quit, because when God calls you, he'd rather you repent. God would rather you repent and get it right than to have to throw in the towel. I put it on the internet. I have over 1,000 CDs over there. That's all my preaching. Find which one you can condemn with the word of God. You may find one you don't understand, and you may not want to do it. But find my word that condemns, that the word of God clashes with it. Bring it to me. I won't get offended. If you're right, know what I'll do? I'll change it. I ain't ashamed to change. I'm ashamed not to change. This is what
I talked to Brother Wendell, I talked to one of the bishops, and then I talked to 6 other people. For the end result of me asking those questions, they sat me down from teaching Bible study, and Brother Wendell he sent the senior pastor to tell me that he didn't want me teaching Bible study, that I need to sit down.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Church Diaries Unlocked. I am your host, Latoyia Porter, and my co-host, our very own, the infamous Harry Sonny Simon, affectionately known as Uncle Sonny, Pastor Sonny, whatever you like.
Good evening.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. That was a hard intro to watch.
Yeah.
A very hard intro to watch. But before we get started, I do want to address some of the intro things. But before we get started, we like to start everything that we do with prayer. And we won't change that today or any other day. So let's get started with prayer. We'll bring up one of our colleagues, Darnicia, and we'll get things started today with prayer, because today will definitely be a hard day and we're going to need every ounce of the prayer.
Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we thank you so much for just being able to be in this space with one another. Lord, we thank you for all of the love and the support that not only the people on the team, Lord, but all the people who are tuning in each week have given to us, to each other. Lord, we know that this is a hard episode. Lord, we ask you that you would comfort us, God, and that you would give us peace that only you can provide.
Yes,
God, we
Lord.
know that you are a God that hates lies and loves truth. And as we are on this platform to be able to give people the truth, that way they can make informed decisions, God, we just ask you that you would be with us and give us strength.
Yes, Lord.
Lord, we ask you that you would protect our hearts and the hearts of those who are viewing. Lord, help us to be mindful of different triggers. And God, we ask you that you would cover us
Yes, Lord.
in only the way that you can.
Yes,
Lord,
Lord.
we thank you for bringing us on the other side of these situations, bringing us on the other side of the trauma, of the pain. And
Yes,
Lord, just as you carried us through those moments, we ask you to be with us in these moments as we talk about and share our stories.
yes, Lord.
And we thank you in Jesus' name. Thank God. Amen.
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 Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you so much, Darnicia, for everything.
All right. So we are certainly excited about tonight's episode, and as previously stated, it is weighty. Um, we would love to not have to have a session like this, but with all the gaslighting and dishonesty, the lying and gaslighting that is being done, it's vitally important that the record be set straight. And so, what we're going to do, we're going to start on a light note.
Yeah.
We about 4 episodes ago, we had Jasmine came on, and she shared her story. It was
Yeah.
riveting. It was visceral. It was often hard to hear. And she got about halfway through her story, and she's gotten a lot of flack, a lot of pushback, but her
Yeah.
story came back with a positive end. And so
Yeah. I'm
we
so
would love,
excited for her.
yeah,
So excited for her. And I think why this is such a beautiful moment is because this is like what we set out to do, which is to just expose truth, because it should never be hidden in the first place. And I think the beauty in Jasmine's story is it gives her a level of vindication. And she only told part of her story. And she got so much slack from it, from people that we grew up with in the church, from members of the church. And it was really heartbreaking. Um, it was very heartbreaking that that she went through that. It made me
yes,
very angry because this, as a survivor of anything, um finding your voice and being able to utilize your voice is so important. And so when people challenge that or want you to limit that, it can be just a devastating experience. And so we're glad to have Jasmine here for update. And if she's backstage, let's go ahead and bring her up and we'll get started with my warrior sister.
Hi.
Hey,
Hey.
good
hello,
to see you,
Jasmine.
Jazz.
Hey, Uncle Sonny. Hey, Toy. How y'all doing?
Great,
Good.
great.
You look beautiful.
Thank you. Happy.
So
Radiant.
yeah. So last time that you were here, you shared a lot of your story, not even all, but a lot.
Not even all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was you got a lot of pushback, a lot of flack, a lot of
Right.
hate mail.
Absolutely.
A lot of hate mail. We did too, by the way. um, but out of all of that, some truth came forward, and I think that makes it all worth it just to see the happiness
Absolutely.
that you are experiencing right now and the truth that you've been able to live. So tell us about that.
So, like you said, I told part of my story, and it was rough. So I had to go through the emotion of actually letting the words come out of my mouth because as I'm saying it, I'm reliving it in my head. It was horrible, and I'll say it for the millionth time. My intentions were never to hurt or expose or do anything harmful to my mother. It just so happens that the truth hurts sometimes. But I started to regret it. Like, oh, I shouldn't have said nothing. I should have just let it be.
Yeah.
But being anxious, it was a long 7 weeks from the time I did that ancestry test. I was checking it every day. And then it was actually on one of y'all lives, I was getting my hair fixed, and 7:05 I got an email saying that my DNA results were updated. And it gave me a close family. And I'm trying to text Uncle Sonny, not realizing it's Tuesday, he's live. So I'm sending screenshots or whatever, and I'm impatient, can't wait. So I realized that this girl that I'm comparing her picture from Ancestry to Facebook, I'm trying to make sure it's the same person. I realized she and my cousin have, they're mutual friends, but my cousin has like 3 different pages, and they're friends on each page. So I'm like, this is weird, like this is weird, because unfortunately, when I did the test, it was mainly to prove that it wasn't, hoping that it wasn't an RTM member. That was my main thing. I never figured I would find my father. I never figured I would even have siblings. But I contacted my cousin, like, who is this girl? She's like, I'm gonna call you, I'm at work. And I couldn't wait, so I posted her picture on Facebook. The next morning, I'm getting phone calls. Who are you? Why are you looking for her? I have 5 siblings. They introduced me to everybody. I meet Mr. John Bellard. I'm like talking to him on the phone, set up a date.
And who
like,
is
hey,
he? Who
John Bellard is my father. For 38 years, guys. 38 years. But I met with him. I drove an hour to pick him up, drove an hour back, do the DNA test, met a couple siblings face to face.
So you did a second DNA test. So wait. Let's talk. Because I think people need to understand. So you had your first DNA test, gave you a connection as a half sibling, right?
Correct. Well, it said close family, which Uncle Sonny explained to me that was my sibling, because you can see how much DNA that you share with this person.
Share with them. Yeah. Correct. So
because he had never done an ancestry, it didn't pull his name up.
Right. Gotcha.
And because of
what led you to the second test? What made you take the second test?
Like I said, number one, because he didn't take one, so his name didn't pull up. And number two, you want to believe what your mom tells you for 38 years, right? So I did call her. I did call her every step of the way. Hey, look, I'm just letting you know I'm about to do this DNA test. Hey, look, the DNA test popped up this person. And I not only called her, but I called her and I shared my screen with her, because I felt like I knew what she was going to say. I'm making this up, or somebody told me this. No, I wanted her to see the black and white. She just kept insisting that I was tripping. So I asked him, come on, would you come do another DNA test with me, you and I? And I let her know. And I also needed to see it on black and white.
Yeah. Because it's like, you needed to remove all doubt.
Yeah, I couldn't pick up my birth certificate and see, but we did it, and they told me I would get the answers in 5 to 7 business days. So I was expecting to get my results that following Thursday, but on that Monday, I got an email. I was checking my email for something else, and I seen like 3 emails down that said DNA results, and I'm sitting in the car, and I'm like, I started screaming and hollering and crying, and I called him. It's like I seen 99.9998. I didn't see my name. I didn't see his name. All I see was those numbers. And I'm calling him, screaming and hollering. He was like, I had just got off the phone with him, told him I was going to the grocery store. So he actually thought something was wrong, like I got hit or something. I'm like, no, you're my dad.
And we don't have a picture of it. So yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like I didn't need. I don't know if we brought a picture to put up for tonight, but I would say this: when I seen the man picture on side of I was like, oh, we don't even need a DNA test. Like
exactly, and that's what.
Oh my God! Like you resemble him more than any of you and your brother. Your brother. Yeah. You guys resemble him so much, and I've seen you with your siblings and
Y'all are so
all of your
awesome.
family welcoming you in. I seen everybody talking about sis and cuz, and
Yes, yeah,
they are
and so
super
as I was waiting
excited.
on the results, he was telling me on the way to take the test, you don't have to do this because he didn't remember until I reached out. He wasn't thinking about it, should I say. But once they called him and said, "Hey, you got another daughter. She looked just like you, blah, blah, blah." He said he got to thinking and he said he told my mom when he saw her pregnant, he told her, "That's my baby." And she told him no. And then a couple of months after she had me and she brought me there, he said the same thing. His family did. The family says that his mom died saying, "Connie got your child. Connie got my
Oh,
grandbaby."
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, wow. It's
Wow.
awesome
well, you
though.
know
I
what?
never
I'm gonna say this, Jasmine. There it is. We have the best IT person in the business. I swear.
Yes,
I
he
You
tell
is.
guys
you.
look
Good
so much
job.
alike, right? Y'all look so much alike. Um, Jasmine,
And he
I
just texted
am
me right
so
now.
happy for you.
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy
Thank
for you.
you.
I'm so happy that CDU could be a conduit to help you get to the truth and
Yes.
answers. And through that, you've been able to connect with family that is always wanting to know you and be a part of your life. And
I have a special
that's
request though, guys.
that's
Okay.
so important.
Because of course we know that people watch and they don't say nothing, or they'll go and watch it later on YouTube so their name don't pop up on Facebook or whatever. But for the people that's watching, that's not a part of CDU, that's still a
Yeah.
part of RTM,
Yeah.
please let my mother know that I love her. I
Yeah.
love her.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
disappointed at the situation, but I love her. I don't care
yeah.
Yes.
what her excuse is. I don't care if she say I forgot or I don't remember. I don't care. Just I love her and
Yes.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. Like
It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think,
it's
and you know what, Jasmine, I'm gonna say this, and I said this to a young lady I was talking to on yesterday, who was sharing her story. That your desire to know the truth, to just know truth, to have the truth, it is
yeah,
not indicative to you not loving someone or
right,
not being unforgiving. Like there's this sentiment, especially in RTM, that if you are seeking truth, if you are using your voice, that you are bitter or not forgiving or
right,
whatever, and those things are false. Two things can exist at once. You can be
right.
both loving and forgiving and still want to know the truth. The
The
issue
Absolutely.
crazy
that
thing
we
is,
have here with your mom, sadly, and even with Wendell, is that unfortunately the truth is just it doesn't shine them in a positive light, but it's not
right,
your issue. And like I told you before, that's not even your business. That's
right,
between your mom and God. You do what you're supposed to do and be who you need to be. But
right.
I can't, like, don't ever feel like someone's um their inability to accept truth and just own their stuff is
Hmm.
a poor representation of who you are. That's just not the case.
Exactly.
And I had
You deserve
a
the
cousin call
truth, and
me
the
today
truth is
with the same thing.
exactly right.
Yes.
Right.
She's on a
Right.
little delay, Jasmine, so she's not.
Oh,
She didn't hear you. Go ahead.
oh, I said I have a cousin that called me today with the same message that you just gave me. She was like, "Don't worry about it." I'm like, "You got the answers." The crazy thing is, I got answers to questions that I didn't know I had.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like
Right.
it's okay. Like that's why I was sure to say when I went live a few weeks ago, I wanted to be sure that I spoke on my issues and my wrongdoings and my
Sure.
stupidity because I'm not out to put anybody on Front Street to hurt them, but the truth is gonna be told, regardless if it's me, whoever it is, the truth will come out. And I mean,
Right.
threats to harm yourself or anyone else is not going to stop the truth from coming out. It's just
Right.
gonna stop how you have to handle it. Because if you're not here, people are still gonna look at you the way that they do. But you still
Exactly.
have to answer to that when you meet your maker. It's just like I say, the people that's watching discreetly, I still love her. I'm still here for her. She can call me. It's okay.
Well, Jasmine, we certainly appreciate. We wanted to start on a good note tonight
Absolutely.
because we do have some heavy things we're going to be addressing. And but we your story it really exemplifies why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But thank y'all. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. Love you.
No problem. Love you too.
All right. All right. All right. So anyway, uh, but and so that was great. We're grateful that something positive came out, and the one thing I want to stipulate is this is what we do is never about harm. People's stories are their own, their struggles, and like Latoyia was saying earlier, people have a right to tell their stories, to tell their experience. It's not to demean or to put anyone else down, but their stories are their own. And so at this point, we're going to move on. We're going to invite Sister Lenora to the screen. How are you, Sister
Hello.
Lenora?
I'm good. How you doing, Brother Sonny?
I'm wonderful, wonderful.
Good.
We're
Good to
certainly
be here.
glad to have you here tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, so for those that don't know you, Sister Lenora has we've known each other since we were almost kids. I'm a little older, a lot older, but Sister Lenora has a history, a long history with the Refuge Temple.
Right.
And so, what I want to do is first give Lenora an opportunity to introduce herself.
Okay, I'm Lenora Ames. I grew up in Refuge Temple. My mother joined when I was about 6 or 7,
Hmm.
and I'm a little north of 50 now. So it's a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All my
Okay.
siblings grew up there. My aunts, uncles. I have lots of family in Refuge Temple. Brother Jimmy Guillory, Jeffrey Guillory. Who else? My AD, Louise, my Cat, Uncle Walter, Sister
Yeah,
Cat. You
yeah.
name it. David Guillory, that's my first cousin. Bunch
Right.
of us.
Okay. Well, good, good. So, what we wanted to do is, I mean, because you remember Refuge Temple as far back as Mill Street,
Right.
and so what was your experience there at that time? What did you, or how did you perceive the church members?
Oh, that's a broad question, Brother Sonny.
Yeah,
Uh, I guess it was okay, when we were younger. I'm
yeah, yeah. Well, but as people were growing, we were more like a family, wouldn't you say?
definitely, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so that was more your experience as a
Yes, all the ministers were like family. They were like brothers. We all visited each other. It was nothing for the different ministers, the brothers, sisters, to
sure.
come to our house. The Parkers. I remember Stephanie. Her
Yeah,
mother, her dad used to come over and drink coffee, whatever. Stephanie would come and play with us. I mean, with Liz used to come and play with us. We
sure.
played softball at the park. Janessa, Desiree, Dion. We go way back. This is
Yeah,
like I don't know, third grade.
yeah, yeah.
Second, third, fourth grade.
Right. Um, so, but you grew, and as you grew into the ministry, what I want to do, I want to focus in on a couple of phases of your life. Um, you you begin to, you had a child, you had a son,
Mm-hmm.
and you worked hard to provide.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you purchased your own home,
Right.
roll your sleeves up, and did all the things that someone would do that is trying to make a good environment for their child, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you went to school.
I went to school, went to LPN school,
Okay.
struggled, single mom, did what I had to do to buy books, pay the bills. Yeah, did that for
Yeah.
about 2 years. I
Okay.
graduated.
Okay. How did that feel?
Oh, when I graduated, that was a major accomplishment for me. Yeah, I
Sure.
was very excited,
Okay. Okay.
grateful.
Okay. I want you to share with me your experience that happened shortly after you graduated.
Yeah, so after I graduated, I was all excited. I went to church. I knew they were going to announce my graduation because they did that.
Uh-huh.
So I bought me a new dress. I was all excited about my little graduation. Had some money because I didn't have a lot of money before to buy nice little clothes.
Yeah.
So I went to church, wore my little dress, and I remember after church, one of the sisters came over and approached me, and told me that she was assigned to me to help me or teach me to manage my money. And I was like,
Okay.
"What? Teach me how to manage my money?" I needed somebody to teach me to manage my money because apparently I'm spending money on new clothes, new dresses. And
Right.
so she made a point to let me know that she shopped at Goodwill and she shopped at the garage sales, like to me, implying that that's what I should be doing instead of buying new dresses. I needed to
Okay.
be shopping at Goodwill and the garage sales.
Mm-hmm.
And she was there to teach me how to manage my
Okay.
money.
So she was assigned to you after you had gotten your education.
Right.
Who was assigned to you before?
Nobody. No
So
one.
when you were struggling to pull your life together and provide for your child and buy your home and do all the things, there was no assignment.
No. Nobody asked, "Do you need anything? Can we help you?" Never. Which I didn't expect that. I mean, I wasn't raised like that. I didn't expect anybody. I just did what I had to do.
Yeah, and pretty much you had a circle. Uh,
Correct.
you had a strong circle. Your mom was a business owner
And still is.
and still is, and
Mhm.
I will be hollering at Kevin to send me some
Yeah,
some
you
of those
should.
gingerbread cakes. Uh, and your aunt, you had a strong circle around
Oh,
you there.
yeah. I have my Aunt D, Cat, I can't, my Aunt Marianne, my Aunt Cat. I don't know, my Uncle Walt. There's a bunch of us. David. I
Sure.
have lots of family in the church. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So so how did that conversation go? So she sent to you to help you to manage your money after you
Right.
get a good job.
I was just taken back by that because, and this particular person to be assigned to me, I'm thinking, well, there are lots of sisters that I identify with that I love, I admire. This
Hmm.
was somebody that never really fellowship with me. She might speak to me in passing, but we never really sat down or conversated or. So I was a little taken back that she came, was my assignment, was assigned to me to teach me how to budget and manage my money. But of course, I wasn't having any part of that. I shut
Yeah.
that down. That wasn't about to happen. And I let them know if I need some help, I have my mother.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
she's good at that. I
Okay.
think I'll be okay.
But then, at some point you left, but came back to the church.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, I don't even know where to begin with that because I left a couple of times. I fell off a couple of times. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I identify with anybody there anymore. Just
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay. But your son is getting older, and you come back and you want to. Now you're reaching out for help.
Yeah, I wanted some help, some mentorship, something for my kids, my boys, and I remember I went there one day during the day, and I think I had on. I was, didn't little scrawny, skinny thing. I had some baggy shorts on, like almost to my knees. Those little, I forgot what the cargo shorts.
Okay.
and a little sleeveless. I wanted to cover up a little bit, so I made sure I was covered up a long sleeveless sweater, crochet
Mhm.
sweater over that with a t-shirt. But I was not uh, met with a lot of love and welcome, and I didn't feel the love at all. I think I was somebody went and told another person that I was there. It was like I was there to seduce somebody, do something wrong. I don't know, but I was treated really, really bad. I wasn't welcomed at all.
So did
I
they
think
invite
I
you? Did they invite you in?
They did not. They questioned me as who I wanted to talk to, what I wanted to talk about. I was kind of questioned, like, what are you doing here? So, I was like, forget it, don't worry about it. I went on back to my car, and one of the brothers came out behind me and met us in the parking lot and talked to us for a little bit. But
So was this
that was
during
about it.
COVID? Maybe.
No, this was not during COVID. No,
Okay.
this was
So
before COVID.
okay. So it's before COVID. And so
Mm-hmm.
um, so you're coming, hoping to get some help for your sons and
Some counsel, some leadership, some mentorship,
yeah,
some advice. I'm not a man. I had my boys. I didn't,
yeah.
know how to identify with them in a lot of things.
Okay. But so they kind of the ladies kind of rebuffed you, but one of the ministers did eventually come out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that?
It was okay. He was trying to be supportive as, best he could.
Okay. Okay.
That was it though. I never heard anything, nothing,
No follow up.
no follow up, nobody reaching out to us, nothing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, good. What I wanted to do, because as a lead-in, we're getting ready to go into what I consider a very sombering part of this podcast, and I wanted to. Uh, Brother Wendell had mentioned something, and I wanted you because you've been there for quite some time.
Mhm.
Um, as far back as Mill Street, do you recall? Who's the song leaders on Mill Street, for example, or on Avenue D?
Yes, I do. I remember Brother Larry. We love Brother Larry Hayes. I
Hmm.
remember Brother Frazier. Brother Frazier was a big one.
Hmm.
Sister Leatha. Back on Mill
Hmm.
Street, yes, that was Sister Leatha. Brother Albert Lede.
Yeah.
It's so many. Yeah, I remember them.
Okay. But sometime after we came on Avenue D. Things changed with who was leading the song service. Can you tell me about that?
I know we had moved. I don't know if you remember. We went to Eunice for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when we came back. He was there. This Brother Boone person was there, and I just thought it was odd. It wasn't Brother Frazier anymore, but it was always Brother Boone. And
Hmm.
I understood that came from Houston, him and his little family, but it was just but all about Brother Boone. He led like every praise and worship service, and I just wondered why. What happened to Brother Frazier? Because they moved him to the
Yeah.
back. But I love Brother Frazier.
Oh yeah.
But it was all.
Uh-oh. Did we lose her? Looks like we lost her. If you can bring Latoyia back up. Looks like we lost Lenora. All right. We have Miss Porter back with us. I thought that was important. That was one thing that stood out to Lenora. She said that when she came back, when they came back from Eunice, um, the song leader had changed. It was no longer Brother Frazier, Brother Johnny Brown, and Brother Lede. It was Brother T Boone. And I guess the irony in that is that Brother Wendell just said this Sunday that T Boone was not a song leader in his church. I think it's
Yeah, I said
important.
that. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's important that people know when they're being gaslighted. You're sideways. We got you now,
Oh,
though.
you
Okay.
got me.
So you, if you will, Sister Laura, go ahead on and tell us your perspective about that because uh, you were there. You've seen the song leader as they came around. So tell us what you saw when y'all came back from Eunice.
Oh, it was Brother Boone was just the biggest thing. Him and his, I mean, he had a cute little family. I remember his daughter. I remember his wife, but I just remember it was always Brother Boone. He was over everything, even a lot of stuff. He had a lot of control over the praise and worship. Even in the choir, he had a lot of control. It was always about Brother Boone. The every praise and
Yeah,
worship, and I never identified with him. I just thought it was strange. Everybody would be shouting and going just like he was so anointed, but I never got it. I never felt it. I never
yeah.
identified with that.
Um, he, you said there were several people, a couple of people, even though we were like family, and we like real brothers and sisters. But you
Hmm.
said that he was a person that you never allowed to touch you.
Not right. I always cringe. There's something about him when he came. I remember Brother Frazier approached me one day after church, and he was coming, and so he had been talking to Brother Boone, but Brother Frazier started approaching me. Brother Boone came behind him, and when he came toward me, I kind of flinched. It just I felt so ooh. And
The
when I think
devil.
he
That
saw
was
my
the devil. The devil. That's
he
what you was
saw my
feeling.
body language and he kind of backed off. But and Brother Frazier just looked. I kind of leaned closer to Brother Frazier and backed up like, Please don't approach me. Please don't touch me." But I never. He was one brother I can truly say. But I knew all the Brother Jones person.
Sure,
I could go up to any one of them. Brother Johnny, all the ministers in that church, still to this day. I love
sure,
them, all of them, and they're like uncles. But that
sure,
was one particular minister. I don't think that guy knows me. I don't think I ever had a conversation with him. I know he never greeted me. I never greeted him. If he was there, I went the other way. He always gave me a cringy, uneasy feeling. That was the one person in that ministry throughout my life that I can say I never had any relationship with him,
sure.
ever. And I
Okay,
had one with
Satan.
just about everybody.
right. No, absolutely.
Hmm.
Sister Lenora, I appreciate. I thought that your testimony was important.
Thank you.
Uh,
Oh,
Leading,
you're
thank you
welcome.
very much. We appreciate your honesty, your candor. I've always seen you as serious about your relationship with God, and thank you for tonight's uh, input on this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, all right. So, is can we bring Sister Donna on? I want to. We
Uncle
have to do
Sonny,
this. Go ahead. Go ahead.
before, if you don't mind, I gotta address two things. The first thing is important that Sister Lenora, what she just said is so important. But when also said that he was involved with the lifestyle, I guess, of the people that led song service and that type of stuff, and that really made me cringe because, as we all know, my stepfather was
Okay, you're frozen. All right, she's frozen. So, that's okay. She's back. You back, Latoyia?
maybe okay, y'all know I live in the country, so listen, we got bad weather out here. But I said, we all know that my stepfather was not the only child molester in the music ministry at RTM.
That's
So
correct.
let's not play those games. And so
That's
for him
correct.
to gaslight new people because they were not there back then and they don't know what happened back then. My stepfather was not the only child molester that got up and sang service and shouted across the stage and sung service in the choir and all that other
Right.
good stuff, led service and was heavily involved in leadership in the music ministry at
Right.
RTM back then. He was not. And so for Mr. to try to paint that picture to these people who maybe newer to the ministry, first 10 years, for 15 years, whatever, it's just sad. It's disgusting, actually.
And
It's also very frustrating for me, and I'm sure because I've gotten text messages already advising me I'm okay because my continence is a little different,
sure.
and I acknowledge that, but it's very frustrating for me to have to, I guess, defend. I guess you should say the truth But this is what, God has put me in position to do. This is what I'm going to do. But what we're not going to do, and what I'm not going to let him do, is come for my mother. That
Right.
ain't happening. Him and nobody.
Exactly. Okay. The weather is bad in the country in Mississippi. Okay, so all right. If she's gonna be frozen, we do want to bring up Donna. If can you play those two videos, Jerome? Play video one while Latoyia is coming back. 2440. Latoyia is frozen. Is she back? Was okay.
I might
You
be.
back?
I'm here.
Okay. And the reason why we want this to play, go ahead. Is it playing?
I don't hear a video.
Okay. Well, the reason why we are playing this is because we are impeaching what Brother Wendell said about her testimony. What she did say was that physical violence toward her happened, and anybody can go to 1428 on that video, and she did say that physical violence happened to her, and she and Latoyia would run from the physical violence. It was not any sexual aggression toward Latoyia at that time, but physical violence. They experienced physical violence in Huntsville, and she was told or advised that she could not divorce him. She went to Houston, and it was in Houston where he began to use sexual advancements and do things to Latoyia there. And this was her testimony. And if we can get the video back
just
up.
so we can also be clear, Uncle Sonny, 85-90% of my abuse occurred in Lake Charles.
And that's what your mother said.
60% of that occurred after he knew.
Wow.
100% of the full penetration occurred after the meeting at his house. Just so we're clear, since we want to do timelines and we want chronological order and all that good stuff. 100% of the penetration occurred after the meeting at his house.
Okay. Okay, here we go. So even though you weren't sure, because your daughter told you that you felt getting away was, you were trying to get away from him because of that.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so you go to lecture. Okay, we missed the first part. 2440. Yeah, that's
I was waiting at home for his finances and stuff like that. But when the first time Latoyia had ever said anything to me about him touching her, we was living in Houston, going to Brother Hayward's church.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do, really. I was shocked at the whole thing, at it.
Because you never heard that before?
I had never heard it before. That was the first time I'd heard it.
Okay.
And I went to Brother Hayward about it.
Okay.
And Brother Hayward just laughed at me. Like that couldn't be true.
Repeat that again.
I say he laughed at me.
He laughed at you.
He laughed at me like that wasn't true. He don't know what she making up and all of that. And it just went from there to, that's when Toya said that. I think she said that Wendy and them had checked her and all of that, but I can't remember that. I can't remember it, but I'm not saying it didn't happen because it probably did.
Yeah.
But and then I kind of didn't believe it at first,
Right.
but I kept it in my mind. You know, it's like it stayed in my mind. Uh, Brother Hayward believed the same thing. He didn't believe in divorce.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I'd never worked a day in my life. I ain't know nothing about getting a job. I didn't know what to do for his work and take care of myself and my kids.
Yeah.
Which, you know, during that time I had Rolanda. When we moved back from Huntsville to Houston, I had an extra child.
Right.
Rolanda
Okay,
was a baby.
okay, so let's back up a little bit. So you told Brother Hayward about the accusation, even though you weren't sure, you did tell someone,
Yeah,
and you were laughing. Okay. And then you were laughed at, and you said you kept it in your mind. So how, because I did hear Pastor Sonny just say that Brother Hayward and Brother Wendell, even though the church's names were different, that it was still one church. And so how did the meeting come about, that Latoyia met Wendell? Because I'm wondering if that's why Wendell said, well, she wasn't a member of my, no?
That's further down.
that's further down.
Further down. Okay, got it.
We stayed in Houston for a while.
Okay.
And I finally got tired of dealing with stuff, and I left here. I just snuck off. I left everything, just took some clothes for the kids and clothes for myself, and I snuck off and ran away and went to Houston, went to Lake Charles then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I left him.
So you left to get away from him.
Right.
Okay. So even though you weren't sure, because your daughter told you that, you felt getting away was, you were trying to get away from him because of that.
Right.
Okay. All right.
I think too, Uncle Sonny, before I forget, I think it's important that we've had testimony on CDU from members of the Archie family. Remember Nina? She attested to the fact that her mother was aware of what was going on, and that she would have arguments with Wendell about it, which is why Sister Edna used to keep me with her a lot. I think also I want to confirm, even though I won't say the name of the person because I did not confirm with her that I can say her name. After that episode, someone who has been a part of RTM, she's no longer part of RTM for a long time, that knows all of us, remembers Sister Janice, Lord rest her soul, Janice Thomas from Houston, telling her about the exam. Sister Janice was one of the women that was in the exam. And she told this person about the accusation and having to and being there when they examined me because I was being messed with. Yeah.
Yes.
So
but also what you want to make clear about Sister Edna, she did that with Wendell when y'all were in Houston.
Correct. We were in Houston. Yes, we were in Houston, and if anybody watched the episode when we talked with Nina and her story, there were moments where her mother would talk about what was happening, and they would have arguments. And Sister Edna used to keep me with her a lot. Like I used to get on Sebastian's nerve because I was with them so much. And they had conversations and meetings like about what was happening to me. So it was no secret. People knew about it. But that those things occurred in Houston, but Wendell still had the input in on it. For him to say that, one, we were not members of his church is a lie. And for him to continue to lie into these people's face is disgusting. And it's even sadder for me. It's very heartbreaking for me. The elders who I grew up with, who I looked up to, who I have so much respect for, who watched me grow up. Not stand up and say, you need to stop saying this.
Yeah.
Like, you need to stop saying this. Like, there are men and women in that church who I, even to this day, love and respect, and felt like they would always stand on side of right, because these are people I've known almost my whole life, who watched me grow up, and they may not have known the things that I was going through at home, but they darn sure know that we were members of that church. They darn sure know that he was a song leader at that church. And for them to not be outraged, that is, of everything, these are people that I really thought were like true men and women of God. And I would always give them a pass. You know, we've had conversation about some of these people, and I would say, I know they're true men and women of God. And like, I give them a pass for being at RTM, because I've always said there are some really great people there. But like, I'm looking at these elders in that church who watched me grow up there, who know us, who know, like, you know that he's lying. Nobody has to tell you this.
Yeah.
And for you to not be outraged and to stand up for truth and for right, like, it's the most, I think that in itself is the most heartbreaking thing for me. Because if I was an elder, or not even an elder, if I was in any type of organization, any type of church, and I saw anybody coming forth about them being hurt, and I can attest to the fact that that hurt occurred, and any leader is saying that it did not, I could not be a part of that.
No,
I couldn't. No. So it's just like a double stab in your heart, you know?
Yeah. I did want to stipulate, my son, Jamarcus, mentioned that, and it surprised me. He said he recalled that when they would come visit y'all, they were all put outside, and Mr. Boone would keep you inside. So I mean, it's sad that people will stand on the sideline and pretend, and it's all gaslighting, pretending things. It's insulting people's intelligence. And so what we wanted to do, and I don't know if we need to bring Donna in, because you're going to have a lot to say. What I would like to do is get the next piece of her testimony. Please, 3050 Jerome Place.
Time went on, I still had to leave. And I left him again. I stayed in a shelter.
So you guys reconciled. So you guys reconciled, and then you left again. Is that what you said?
Right. And I stayed in the shelter with the kids. And that didn't, that's not long term. Stay in the shelter. That's not real long term.
Right.
And I met what gave me the relief in the situation, helped the situation a lot, was the fact that I met Brenda.
Okay, but before you go to that, it's important that I think it's clear that now this is the second time, or is it the third time that you left him? You're trying to get away from him.
It was the second time.
Okay, so at this point, it's the second time so you weren't just saying, well, I'm just standing here, everything's fine, even though you were not fully certain, and because everybody's still telling you in your ear saying, he's a good man, nothing's wrong, nothing's happening, but still
he got a lot of praise in Lake Charles Church. I mean, he was the big man in Lake Charles. I mean, I've had sisters come up to me and say, girl, if I had a man like Boone, I'd be shouting every day. You just sit down and be quiet.
Yeah. So you
even Brother Wendell would say stuff like, he a good man. You just need to start trying to understand him. Stuff like that.
He said everybody was telling you.
Well, he didn't say that. He said that many times, but
yeah,
he said that when he found out what had happened one time, he fussed at me because I was finally on my own. I had my own apartment and I had everything going for me. My dad had bought me a car and everything.
Yeah.
And and I was upset because it was time to do income tax and T filed the kids on the taxes.
Yeah.
And I was trying to file my taxes. And
Mm-hmm.
Brother Wendell, so I went to Brother Wendell about it. I don't know what you upset about. That's a good man. He worked and take care of his children. So why can't he carry them on his taxes? He should be able to carry them on his taxes. You shouldn't be so selfish. Call me selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is the point that all right. Okay. Well, I mean, to be quite honest, your mother's testimony is so heartfelt. You know, the struggle that she had trying to do it. I was listening to it today and crying because unlike many people, she was fighting. She's trying to away from. She went to the police. Everything that they told her not to do to try to spare you, she was doing. And to hear Wendell now to try to absolve himself of any responsibility or communication about any of it is repulsive. But so I wanted to stop there, and I want to say, just like you said earlier, uh, most of what you experienced happened in Lake Charles, and so now we're not. We're now going to let you take it from here. I,
Um, so we moved to Lake Charles. Like my mom said, we were it was very abrupt. I remember it was right after a really big fight because I remember it was an iron involved. Like I think either he hit her with an iron or threw an iron. It was a big fight. And I just remember the next day, us leaving to move to Houston, I mean to Lake Charles. And this
okay.
was the summer of my 5th grade year.
Okay.
We moved to Lake Charles. I started 6th grade in Lake Charles. I went to Raynard. I went to Raynard. Don't go look up my record, okay? I had some issues. I was an angry child, but in my defense, I was living in hell. But I went to Raynard. We lived in Carolyn Gardens apartment.
Okay.
At that time, it was my mom, my little sister, and my brother was a newborn. He literally, matter of fact, I don't even know if she had him yet. I think she was pregnant with him, getting ready to have him.
Okay.
And
Right.
it was her best friend, which is my auntie, Aunt Judy, and her 4 boys. So it was a 2-bedroom apartment. So my mom and
Yeah.
Aunt Judy shared a room, and all of us, rest of us, shared the other room in Carolyn Gardens. And it was very abrupt, like going there. And as jam packed as we was in that house, it was probably the most peaceful time of my life because I had my brothers and with nobody trying to have sex with me.
Yeah.
And so it was peaceful. Actually, it was 3 of us. It was Simeon, Jerome, and Jason, me, my sister, because Brian had just left and went to and Kim was
Dylan.
already out the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and Aunt Judy used to get up every morning and make the best biscuits ever, but that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, so we lived in Garden City. I mean, in Carolyn Gardens. I'm sorry, in Carolyn Gardens Apartments, right there off
Yeah.
Shattuck Street. And things were great for a little while, and then I think my little brother was born. I think that's what I don't really remember how he ended up down there, but my little brother was born. I think Aunt Judy and them got their apartment, and T ended up eventually moving down. I'm not really sure how. Shortly after he moved there, I wanted so badly for like things to just be normal, like I wanted I just wanted it to be normal. I wanted my siblings to have their dad. I didn't have my dad. My dad was in prison all the way until I was an adult. I wanted so badly for him to love me, to be a father to me. I wanted that so badly. Like I could remember apologizing for telling on him.
So you apologized to him
For
telling on him.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So he comes to Lake Charles. Shortly after that, I can remember the very first time I was, if you know me and my little brother's relationship, he's like literally my baby. He calls me his mama's sister. And so when he was born, because I'm so much older than him, like almost 14 years older than him, 13. I always had him, and then my mom had really bad postpartum depression, and so I had him a lot, and Judy had him a lot. But I can remember this one particular day. I was laying on the couch in the apartments at Carolyn Gardens, and TJ was laying on my chest, and I was holding him, and something to that effect. And T had come in, and he had sat on the couch. And literally while I had my little brother, holding him and rocking him, he sat on the couch. And a few minutes later, his hands went in my pants. And so as I'm holding my little brother, he's, well, let me rephrase that. Before he put his hands in my pants, he was playing with himself. And then he put his hands in my pants and started penetrating me with his fingers. That was sixth grade, Lake Charles, Ray North, sixth grade. So I think I was like 12.
Carolyn Garden Apartments. For those that live in Lake Charles, they know what Carolyn Garden Apartments is. That's not in Huntsville. That's not in Houston. This is in Carolyn Gardens in Lake Charles.
Sixth grade. So I had to be what, 12, 10, 11, 12, something like that, 11, 12. And something I know I was at Ray North. I remember that. So shortly, we lived in Carolyn Gardens for a while. A lot of sexual abuse occurred there. And it was never penetration, but he fondled me a lot. He performed oral sex on me a lot. He ejaculated on me a lot. That was like his thing. Like I would be watching cartoons or TV, and he would just like stand in front of me and ejaculate like on my face or all over my body or things like that. And my mom would always not be there. Like there was a period of time to where I think she was working at a nursing home or somewhere. I'm not really sure, but she would. I know she does. She spent a lot of time at church, like cleaning the church. Cleaning the church, and she spent a lot of time doing church stuff.
Sure.
And so we would be home, but it was a lot of that, a lot of finger penetration, oral sex, ejaculation on me. That went on for a few years. When we left Carolyn Gardens, there was another place that we lived at, and I cannot remember, but we lived there briefly. The other place that we lived was Sunset Drive. off of Enterprise Boulevard. We lived, if you know me, I'm a very proud J Hall person. I grew up in J Hall. J Hall made me. um, but so Sunset Drive is like around the corner from
Yes.
Johnson Hall Projects, and it was a house that we were there. I think that house was a greenhouse, and when I went into the police department in 2022, we had to take them. I had to take them and show them Carolyn Gardens. I had to show them, the exact apartment we lived in. I had to drive. We literally drove to the house in Sunset, on Sunset. So at Sunset, 'cause I went to FK White for middle school. For 7th and 8th grade, I went to FK White.
Okay. And so things were happening there.
Lots of it. But that was like the last place that I lived. The place that we lived in the middle of that, I cannot remember the street name. My mom would have to tell me. There was a house that we lived in, and you may remember, because I can't remember. It was on one of those number streets. There was a house that we lived in. I think it was one of those number streets. And we did not live there long because I went to 7th and 8th grade at FKY, but we were there briefly. And a lot of abuse occurred there. Again, it was not penetration, but yeah, it was 3rd or 4th Street. I cannot remember the street, but it was one of those.
Okay.
And
but all these things happen. So most of what you experience, I hate to use the words, and forgive me, it's hard to even say. Finger penetration, all the things that you said he did. These things happen. Johnson Hall.
Sunset Drive. Johnson Hall was freedom. I think that's why I claimed Johnson Hall so much, because that's where my mom got her first apartment.
Okay.
So,
All right.
So it was Sunset Drive, which was around the corner from Johnson Hall.
Okay, Sunset Drive. Okay, so all these at each of these turns in Lake Charles, this is where all of these things happened.
Correct. And the house that we lived in on 3rd or 4th Street, I can't remember which one it was, but I remember it was when we had got this dog. And I know Jerome remember this crazy dog. This dog, I think, was that when we got Ida B? Anyway, I'm veering off topic. It was 3rd or 4th Street, and that was the house that your sons are probably talking about, because there were many days that I was like pretty much the only girl. It was your boys, and then my brothers. I was always with Jerome, Simeon, and Jason, and so there were lots of times like where they would be doing something, and I would be, have to stay in because he had his own set of plans. That house was a very dark time. It was a very dark space, because I think this is when my mom was trying really, really hard to get help from the church. This is before we met Brenda. This was, she was really trying to get help, because I remember specifically one time she had came home, and I don't know if she was cleaning the church or it was Bible study or something. But I remember this was going to be like, because in my mind as a kid, she didn't believe me. No one knew this was happening. And so she had come home, and she had went to church, and she came home, I guess, before he realized it. And so while she was gone, he, was violating me, and he was performing oral sex on me and doing all kinds of other horrible things. But he had picked me up and brought me into his bed. Because you know how little I was. If y'all remember me as a kid, I was really tiny, right? Yeah. And so he hears the car pull up. And he tells me, get up, go put your clothes on. Because I was butt naked in his bed, my mom's bed, him and my mom's bed. And at this moment, I just said, if I don't move, then she'll come in, they'll see that I'm naked, and something will happen. They'll believe me. Like it because I just always thought that it wasn't that I wasn't believed, right? And so when my mom came in the house, of course, she sees me in her bed naked. He starts saying, so she just went livid. And I remember her like going off and trying to pretty much attack him. And he said, she did that herself. I don't know what's going on. She did that herself. She just got naked and got in the bed. And I remember her having a conversation. I don't know who it was with, but I remember having a conversation and saying, I'm not going to allow him to do this to my daughter. I just remember those words. And shortly after that is when the infamous meeting occurred at Wendell's house. It was shortly after that.
Okay.
That's how we got to the meeting. That's how the meeting took place.
Because your mother walked in and you were naked in her bed.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know who she was talking to, but I do remember her like having a phone. Like I remember her attacking him or trying to attack him. If you know T-Boone, he's a big guy. And I just remember her saying, I'm not finna let you do this to my child. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. She did that to herself. And I remember mom being hysterical. And I remember her talking to someone. But at that moment, I just remember thinking, if I lay here, they'll know it's the truth, right? And I remember just freezing. And I used to have this thing so he would come into my room at nighttime. And when my mom was working, she would work at night. So when he would come into my room at night, for me, even like now, I'm a very, very light sleeper. And so, but I like to have like my door closed because I need to be able to hear the door open so I can kind of grip myself and prepare for what I know is about to happen to me. And the craziest thing ever is I remember being a kid at RTM, believing in my whole heart that RTM is the only way, the only truth, the light, that's it. But
Lord
when he would be in my room, because if y'all remember back then, you didn't have a lot of options for television. And late at night, what came on? Church. That's all you could watch was the ministers on TV. And so he would come in my room, and my little sister she was a baby, she'd be laying right there. And I mean, he would violate me. And usually like he would finger penetrate me. Like oral sex was a big thing. And he would get on top of me and say, oh, let me put the tip in, let me put a little bit in, that type of stuff, as if I had an option. And that always confused me. But it was just that type of, perverted behavior that really used to get him off, so to speak. So when we were at that house, a lot of stuff happened often. This was in Lake Charles, and it was a lot. To this day, I don't like Halloween, and that is why, because his birthday is the day before Halloween, or it's on Halloween, one of those days. And it just seemed like he turned into a monster. Even the closer it got to Halloween, I would be like, because he would do things to me, and like Halloween movies would be playing. Like that's one of, like my husband would tell you, like I'm freaked out by Myers even to this day. Don't like it, don't want to see it. And that's just because like these things would be playing in the background while some really bad things were happening to me. But that's how we ended up at the meeting at Wendell's house.
Okay.
It's because my mind.
So according to Wendell, I brought y'all to his house, which is a lie, an egregious lie, because I was at his house. he kind of used me as his personal slave. And that's the sad part about it is he turns around and he tries to make it seem like somehow come on, y'all, we're going to Brother Wonder's house.
No,
Um,
we rode to his house. Me, my stepdad, and my mom. We rode to his house together.
okay.
When we got there, you were there, which of course
Yeah.
is always glad to see Uncle Sonny. So
Yeah.
you were there, and I didn't know why you were there. I mean, you were there.
I was just there. But when y'all
I
got
didn't.
there, he directed y'all to the master bedroom and asked me to come in too. So it was not like I was handling a situation. I want to go over his story because these lies need to stop. You know, somebody that will stand so bold and talk about lying and will lie all at the same time. I mean, this man has no conscience whatsoever. He sits up and says that I came in there to try to, and I didn't believe you, and your mother didn't believe you. Whereas he brought me into a meeting, and I'm just sitting there. It was something that he was handling. I wasn't sitting there saying, "Oh, she's lying." That's what he said. That's what he's trying to make the people that listen to him believe that me and your mother were sitting there. So your mother catches you in bed naked, and so he said that your mother is saying that you're lying.
I just remember us. That's how we ended up having this meeting because I think the way that I recall it is after that episode, it was like my mom demanded something be done. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That's how I kind of look at it now, like in retrospect as an adult.
Sure.
Because I remember her trying to kill him, or like literally attacking him. And I remember him trying to say, you, I don't know what's wrong with her. Your child, I don't know what's wrong with her. That's your child. I remember him saying that, like something to that effect, as if he told my mom that I got naked and got in her bed. That was his story. And so I remember shortly after that, actually I'm skipping a part too that occurred. That happened after the meeting. Never mind. Yeah. So anyway, I remember that part, and it was other little things that I think had happened with my mom. Just was like she needed to get permission, so to speak, from the church so she can leave and get the support and the help that she need. But I don't think that I think in my mom's mind, this is just my opinion, she felt like she needed that permission from the church to leave her husband in order for God to bless the leaving, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because it was still this, there's no way he could do that. Like, yeah, I have to understand who he was in the church. Everybody loved him. Nobody felt like he would do this. Kind of just like with the story in Lafayette with Sadera. Everybody felt like these men are put to a pedestal, you know, in their position as if and so the child now is in a position to prove that this happened to her.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
I think
how it was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I was going to say, I think that what makes this particular episode so important, and why when like these lies and there's a lot of gaslighting happening, it's important to address it because history is often like rewritten by the people who are the loudest.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think truly that Mr. Wendell has like bought so much into these lies over time that he very well believed like that he is the hero, right? Even though his actions, or in this case his inaction, like you said, directly correlated to your abuse being worse, right?
Yeah, for the longest, I've never shared this with anyone. For the longest, I need everybody to remember I didn't leave RTM till I was 23. So I was there even as an adult.
Sure.
And every time I would see him and hug him, because I had bought into the foolishness myself, because he would always say, you know, I saved your life. Yes, you did. You saved my life. Because I believed you. God gave me the wisdom of Solomon. That's what he would always, literally, every time I talk to the man. God gave me the wisdom of Solomon. Look at you. Look at you. You look so good. I'm so glad to see you, and I'm glad God used me. And
wow. What did
I
he
bought
came
into
to you?
that.
Go
I
ahead.
believe that. I
Wow.
promise you. I promise
That
you.
that is what people like him have as in their arsenal. They're able to gaslight you and make you believe their lies. He came to
Yeah.
you the next day, though.
The next after the meeting. Okay, so after the meeting, so the meeting occurred. We've talked about that here, so I won't go too far into that. But we had the meeting. My stepfather ended up confessing. Well, so he confessed to Wendell, and I'm not really sure what else, because that's when Wendell asked me to leave the room. But the next day after, but then we go home. And that's the part that confused me to this day. So confused still, because now that you know we have a monster, and then we all just get up and go home with the monster. And I remember there are two things about that meeting that are ingrained in my head. The first thing is watching my sister Sandra and seeing her with tears in her, like literally coming down her face, and leaving. And I remember being so hurt that what was happening to me, like that it hurt her, because she was such a kind woman, you know. That was the first thing. And the second thing is that I remember when my mom came out of the room, like her countenance, like she was so sad. And if I remember, she had on a black skirt and a black, like either a white and black shirt, if I remember. And I remember like her whole countenance being so like down and sad and defeated. And I remember her head being down. And I remember she looked up and she said, "Come on, Toya." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "We finna go." And I'm looking like, oh my God, this man is gonna kill me. I believe that, because we lived in hell. Like, I mean, the domestic violence, I promise you, there were times where I literally felt like he was going to kill us all, like everybody in the house. And so we go home. Wendell comes the next day, and the conversation that he said, I think that changed the framework of my life. Because it made me feel like, and then it was a realization. Now I know that it's not a realization, but this is how I realized it then, that I was the problem. Because when he came, you know, and what he said to me was, he said, you know, you don't be telling nobody about this, because you are not innocent. You seduced that man. And I think those words, I seduced that man of God, actually is what he said. I seduced that man of God. I am not innocent. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I am the devil. Like, I did this. I'm the devil. I can't believe I did this. I remember thinking I ruined our family. My brother and sister and I are gonna have a dad. I'm a bad person. Oh my God, I hurt my mom. All of these things that were happening to me, like that's how I. And so, like when people, anybody who watched me grow up, I remember like when we were all getting saved, we were teenagers, and I was talking about this with Uncle Sonny recently. Like, I wanted the Holy Ghost so bad. Like, oh my God, I wanted to just be saved. I just wanted God to be pleased with me, to have that love for, you know, just know that God was pleased. And I remember like going to the altar and crying out and praying, and like everybody around me was like, getting saved, so to speak, because they was speaking in tongues. And it was just not happening for me. And I would shout so hard and cry and pray. I was fast and I was doing it all. And it just seemed like, as I just remember thinking, man, God doesn't want me because I seduced that man. And that's just how I felt. And so I remember shouting and, wanting to be delivered from my Jezebel spirit. I guess that's what I don't know. Life was confusing then. So,
Goodness.
so we went. We were there at that house, and we went home. Wanda comes the next day. Don't be telling nobody about this. Not even Rachel and Leah. I would never forget him saying that, because I remember we were friends. I was friends with them, and not even them. I remember him. He mentioned them by name because you are not innocent. You seduced that man of God. And we ended up moving to Sunset Drive.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm telling a tale. We moved to an apartment. My mom left him. We moved to an apartment briefly. And then she was struggling to basically live there. We were finna get evicted again because she couldn't afford the rent of the apartment. We were living in an apartment. We lived there in that little apartment for a couple of months. It wasn't long. I can't remember the name of the apartment, but it wasn't too far from Sunset Drive. We lived there briefly. And shortly after that meeting, we left. We went to that apartment, and then he ended up, I think, coming to the apartment, or we ended up moving. Yeah, coming to the apartment for like a week or so, to a few weeks, and then we ended up moving to Sunset Drive. That's what I remember.
Okay. I want to take you, because the clock is ticking. I want to take you to New Orleans. I'm sorry. This is all a part of the story. This is revival.
Revival. Was it Camp Meeting or was it revival? One of them.
It was just revival. What happened was the church was moving from Slidell to New Orleans, and so we were having a church revival in New Orleans in the 9th Ward. It's one that Brother Wendell brags about a lot, which like most of his stories, they get yeast added to them, and it's something that really didn't happen. But if you can't, I understand. But if you can.
Yeah, so we were living at Sunset Drive. We had moved there. Shortly after moving to Sunset Drive, I believe because nothing happened to my stepdad, that he began to get just kind of brazen, Shortly after moving there was the first time that he penetrated me. I was 13. And at that time, I was spending time with Brenda. I was going to her house on the weekends. And my mom was letting me go even sometimes during the week. She was like trying to keep me out of the house as much as possible, and I loved it. He hated it, of course. And so at that time, he had started like threatening to like not let me be with Brenda, like go on the weekends, right? But anyway, we had a revival, and it was in New Orleans. Brenda went to the revival in New Orleans, but I had to ride with them because I don't know, he was really trying to limit my intake with her, my time with her. And and so we went to New Orleans, and at this time he is penetrating me, he had penetrated me a couple of times. And so the revival was in a tent. I remember that. And he was leading song service. I remember that. And there was two things that was significant about that revival. The first thing is that while we were there, I had like a really bad itch in the vaginal area, and I didn't know what was happening. Didn't even have a period. I think I had just started my period at 13, right? So I was very like, I didn't really know what was happening. I just know I was itching a lot. And so because I was itching a lot, I had to go back and forth to the car because you're in a dress, so you can't just be scratching uncontrollably, right? So I kept going back and forth to the car. And the car was parked right behind the tent. Right behind the tent, like where the musicians will come in, right behind the tent. And so I'm going back and forth to the car, really just to scratch, like for lack of a better word. In this particular time, I'm going to the car, and he sees me go to the car some type of way. He ends up to the car, and so he gets in the car. While I'm in the car, he sits in the car, and he proceeds to put his hand in my pants and saying, "Oh, so you're itching. Let me help you." Puts his hand in my pants, penetrates me there, ejaculates himself off, gets out the car, goes through the tent, get on the stage, grab the mic, and start singing, "There's a war going on."
You better fight.
Yeah, somebody better fight.
Fight. Okay, now, thank you for sharing that. The musicians once. What did the musician tell you? What did Brother Chris tell you?
So, since we started CDU, we started talking about some things, and a lot of people who have known me, people like Brother Chris, who I appreciated, him having conversation with me. A lot of people at that time, that didn't know wanted to, just say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that was happening." Da, 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 da. But he and I began to talk about the revival in New Orleans, just talking about stuff. And he said, "Man," we were talking about, I think maybe he had read, I don't know if he had read about it or some kind of way we got on the conversation. And he said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "Was that car parked like right behind the tent that night?" And I said, "Yeah, it was." He said, "That rascal," he said, "he was late for like coming on, and they were looking for him. And he remembers him getting out of that car and walking on stage." I said,
To
"Yeah,
lead song service.
To lead song service." He didn't, Brother Chris didn't know I was in the car, but he remembered literally seeing my stepdad get out of the car to go and lead song, because he said they were looking for him. Everybody was looking for him. They know where it was at.
And he gets out of the car after molesting a child and gets on the stage and saying there's a war going on.
Yeah.
But he only could have done that because of everything that Wendell did. And there are just so many issues. And the simple fact that he can get up on Sunday and, talk about, "Oh, I was the only one that believed her," and, trying to gather all this sympathy for him is just so disturbing, right? Because from one survivor of sexual abuse as a child to another, we already have the guilt, right? We already have the shame. It is something that is not just unique to us. It's documented that children who are abused, we already have this guilt. We already have this shame. And so when you have somebody who is a very prominent figure in your life at the time, right? He should have recognized, number one, his position and his power and his authority. For him to say, "Oh yeah, just so you know, it's your fault," right? What kind of message is that?
I think.
Yeah, what kind of message?
I think, Donicia, if I could tell you how disappointing and heartbroken when Mr. Wendell said those words to me, that you are not innocent. And it was like death for me, because what that said to me was that you think I'm a bad person too. In my life, like, he was the single most person that I felt like he was like Jesus, Wendell. Like, I held them to the same, um, and I just wanted him to believe me and to fix it, because I knew even as a child that nothing happened unless he said it happened. Like, he would fix it. If he said we were going to do something about it, then we would do something about it. And so in my mind, Bishop is going to get you. Once, he just got to know that it's the truth, and once he knows it's the truth, he's going to do something about it. And so, like, leaving and going home with the very monster that had hurt me, that was devastating. But even more devastating, to be honest with you, was just knowing that someone who I believed in so much, that I didn't matter to him. Like, I didn't matter.
Yeah.
I wasn't important enough. And my stepfather, he was never sat down from leading song service. He built the church, helped the brothers build the church on Sprigg Street. When he came into some money, he gave Wendell lots of money. He bought cars for people in the church. Like, all of those things mattered more than me. And it's like the reason this is so difficult for me, and I want to make sure that I'm clear about this, because there are a certain group of people that I'm speaking to, and I'm not gonna call their names, but they know who they are. Like, you watched me grow up. You saw me in their church like every single day. Your elders, your people who know that this man is sitting there lying, bold-faced lying to his members, and you have yet to have to come forward and just say enough is enough. You know what I mean? And so I get a lot of people saying like, oh, we didn't know this was happening. Okay, well, you know now. Now what?
Right.
I honestly believe, I think that like is like crushing me so much right now that is almost like I can't breathe, because these are people that have watched me my whole entire life. And I mean, people who I genuinely love. Like, I grew up with your children. I just knew that they were good people, even if he's not. Like, he's Satan. He is literally Satan. Just like Taryn Boone Sr. is Satan.
Yeah.
But these are people who I truly felt like were godly people. And to sit in that church today and amen and and shake your head and not stand up and say, you are lying. Because that's what I would do. If I was sitting in that church and he was sitting there lying and somebody's child's been hurt and people have been hurt, I would stand up right there in the middle of service and say, you are lying.
Right. Security would have to take me out.
They would have
because
you're
because
lying
there's no
and people
way.
are hurting. And
Right.
I think for me, that's just, it's devastating. It's like a second death, because like, you can't do anything to me anymore as a kid, because I'm not that little girl anymore. So his words mean absolutely nothing to me. But the people who I look up to and who I genuinely love, that are, elders in the church, I just would think that they would say something, and for them to not, it's hard.
And let me say this. Why is your story relevant? Wendell tries to make this as, oh, this is old news. The truth of the matter is, this is not about spreading salacious details. You came on today to value clarify, so that it be understood that him gaslighting and lying as if none of that really happened, or if it happened, my hands are clean. That doesn't even show decency. When there's been a victim in any wise, everyone should either be able to show sympathy or empathy, showing that they care, they're concerned, or something. Why would we're not doing this because there's any money in it. People have offered to send us money, and I've refused. I don't want any money. People have tried to get, well, they're going to start a church from it. This is not about starting no church. There's nothing in this for any of us but to get the story out there so that if people choose to stay at Refuge Temple, it's their choice, but they don't have to be gaslit and lied to. But if they feel that they want to get out of Refuge Temple or any abusive church, them getting out is not something that says that, oh, God's going to be against me. All this stuff, this is to give people, first of all, a platform for their stories and so that they can tell their experience, and also for people that's still in the same situation, experiencing the same things, to know that they don't have to stay a victim. This is all this, all this gaslighting about, you all know that didn't happen at my watch. That's wrong. Said I was wrong.
Yeah, I think that also, like, the disrespect that he has for his church, he truly insults their intelligence. And even with him saying that the rape didn't even happen in here, it's a police report, sir, a whole police report. Yeah. This man was indicted in Lake Charles, Louisiana, Calcasieu Parish. We put those numbers up. He had a whole indictment.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's disheartening. I'll say this is after the camp meeting and the whole itching thing and all of that kind of stuff, that's when I went to go live with Brenda full time, and that's when I got really out of the telling her what happened, and then her and my mom agreeing that I was going to go stay with her full time. Sure. And my mom finally got her own place, and when my mom moved into her own place in Johnson Hall is when I moved back home with my mom. But from 6th grade until then.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, 100% of the penetration occurred after the meeting with him. He was aware of it.
Right. And see, and I think that's something that is relevant. And Pastor Sonny, you just said this idea of Mr. Wendell keeps saying it's old news, old news, old news. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't still have an effect, especially if you are trying to use what you are lying about, right? Lying about this quote unquote old news to then try and justify your actions right now. Right. And we've seen it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and even throughout this journey of CDU starting, we have seen time and time again where on Sunday, right, he got up and he was like, oh, yeah, God is going to avenge me, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. But he had got up and said, oh, I don't know them. I don't know them. And literally a few days later, they posted that 1990 revival, and you're there shouting at the church, but you were never a member, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it is just very telling that he keeps trying to make himself to be right in this. And it is disappointing that there are people there who have been there for such a long time who can verify that you were there. They know that y'all were there. They know that, that T. Boone was, a prominent person in the church. They know all these things. And then not to speak up, right, is problematic. It's problematic because what you're doing is now you are allowing people who are there, who want to make an intelligent decision, who want to be able to break away from this place that is clearly toxic. And they're looking at you as the person who's been there like, oh, okay, well, they were there. If they're not saying nothing, then it must be okay, right? And that's the problem.
That is exactly the problem. But also, for me, it's like opening another wound, because it just like I'm not important to them either. I
Yeah.
wasn't, so
Yeah.
they can say that it's like old news, but it's old news, it's old story, but it's very much new, because it's
Right.
like I wasn't important enough to him to do anything, to do the right thing. Now here we are in 2024, and not only my stories come forward, but a lot of other stories have come forward, and more stories are coming forward.
Right.
And I'm still not important. I'm not important enough to these people who've literally watched me grow up my whole life and know this man is lying.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And,
that's the part that I think has been difficult for me to process.
right. It's enabling to
Yeah.
know that they're enabling him. They know he's lying, and really, and they're saying they're Christian, and he's saying people shouldn't be lying, and he's lying all the time, and they know it. It's not like I wonder if he's lying. They know he's lying. They
Yeah. And
know.
then and
Go ahead.
then too, Uncle Sam, you have to remember this. This man is telling his people not to watch this podcast, and he clearly watches it every week.
Yeah.
Clearly. He preaches
Yeah.
on it. Every time we speak, we come out with something.
Yeah.
But he doesn't
Right.
want them to watch it, because he doesn't want them to hear the stories and be able to think for themselves and process truth.
Right.
Um, but it goes back to what Anicia said, which was so powerful. When you have people who've been in church 20, 30, 40 years sitting there, who have watched me, literally watched me grow up in their church,
Sure.
saying nothing. You're saying nothing, and that's saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
Right.
So none of these people can tell me, oh, we didn't know. Don't text me, don't call me saying that you support and you love. You don't, because if you did, you would do the right thing. So you couldn't
Right.
do anything then, but you surely can do something now. And
Absolutely.
again, like I said, like I've been telling my story for so long, like because it's healing for me to be able to tell it. But this is like a new wound, because here this man is lying, and the very people that can stand up to him and demand that he steps down can tell everybody else in their church he is lying. They won't stand up for truth. They won't stand up
Right.
for right, and that's hurtful. That's
Yeah.
hurtful.
It
Which
is.
you
It
know,
it is.
it would be different if they did not, if they were not draping themselves in the mantle of Christianity,
Right.
draping themselves in the mantle of we have the truth,
Right.
bragging
Because
about how
nothing he does surprises me. I don't know if it does anybody. Nothing he does surprises me. I
yeah,
expect this behavior from him.
yeah, but you do not expect that from people, and the irony is most of these people are older. Many of these people they've been seeing all this and they know these things are false, and it's just like my salvation is doesn't matter because I'm tied to this guy, and so I'm sinking or swimming with this ship. If he goes down, I'm going down with it. That's the way you believe in salvation now.
Well, and see, that's the thing though, because that's how it's painted, right? Like I can say, like when I went there, it was always this idea of like, hey, get these CDs and live these CDs, like live what he is teaching you. Like we have the truth, nobody else has the truth. And when you can get a large mass of people to buy into this idea and this thought process, then it becomes where, just like you were saying, Latoya, like you looked at him as like, okay, like you and Jesus, y'all might as well be brothers. So I
Twin brother.
right, right, right. It's like this idea that he cannot do wrong, right? He can't do wrong. And so you have these people who weren't there, right? They don't know that all these things occurred. And then I that what you're saying, which resonates with me so much because when you were saying it, like I could imagine you sitting there and people literally not saying anything and taking you back emotionally to that place. Right? That's very difficult. Like I could see that, like, okay, just being back in that same place where like, oh, so again, like nobody cares. No, like I'm not important enough. All these other things are more
Yeah.
important than me and this hurt and this pain, right? And he keeps wanting to say it's this old story thing, but like, we're finna have Juneteenth, right? Slavery happened a long time ago. Doesn't mean that it still doesn't have an effect on us.
Absolutely.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, right?
Absolutely.
The same type of behaviors that have not been corrected and that people have not spoken up about are the same reasons why we have had testimony after testimony from way back to even more recently where the same types of things are happening. And to me, what makes it so disheartening is it's like, are you going to care when it's your children? Are you going to care when it's your grandchildren?
Right.
Or are you still going to believe into this idea that, oh, well, that doesn't happen in our church? Are we still going to do the same thing that the world does, right? Because the world blames female identified like little girls all the time for, oh, it's you, right?
Yeah.
But that was never Jesus's message, right? Jesus was always loving, especially to the children. So are we really being Christ-like? Are we really being Christ-like if we're doing the exact opposite? Or what about holy boldness? I used to hear that all the time growing up. Like, you should have holy boldness. Where was the holy boldness at on Sunday when y'all know that this man was lying? And it has an effect. It has an impact. And until people start standing up,
I think that that's it. I hope I gained some clarity. I mean, I could have shared a lot of the horror stories with you guys, but I think you get the gist of it. Most of my abuse occurred in Lake Charles.
Yeah.
And as much as and Wendell knew about the abuse when we arrived to Lake Charles, before we even got there, he knew about the abuse when the abuse was in Houston. 100% of my abuse that included penetration occurred after the meeting at his house, after he was aware of the abuse.
Wow. We certainly thank everyone that was here tonight. And what I do hope you take away from this is that just because, like Donisha said, just because someone yells the loudest, it doesn't mean that it's true. All the yelling does not take away from that. Everything Brother Wendell has been saying is a lie. We're getting ready to go into the after show. We're going to invite all of our friends to a brief after show. The link is right there in the comments. You may join the after show and you will be invited in. We will call Wendell. You're right, Marquita. And we were. Put Marquita's statement up there. We will call Wendell. Like that is absolutely right. Lord help us. And we were. So you are invited to meet us in the after show. And we will have a brief after show tonight for all of you that will join us. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. And may God bless every one of you.